So I'm joined today by Simon Friend. I would say one of the names in the surveillance space. I say that politely because I don't get to dictate the market, but I've been specifically invited Simon in because what I'd like to discuss is one of the questions that we get asked on a frequent basis, which is how do I transition from the business into surveillance, into compliance, more surveillance specific. And I've specifically invited yourself, and I've got some others that I'm speaking to as well, who have made that transition before and also have been seen and known to make those hires themselves.
Yeah.
So the net guy's pretty open, pretty simple question, but how do you believe people make that move, that transition?
Personal experience. I had a trading firm which impacted by regulation and technology. So I sat down and thought about what I might be interested in, technology, interested, didn't think it was suited my skill set. Through various studies that I'd done, I had a sort of a latent interest in, I guess, corporate governance rather than compliance or surveillance. So I sat down and thought, well, regulation has impacted me. This was MiFID 1 at the time, so 2007, 2008. So I thought about what I wanted to do, and the thing I would say is you have to think about your own personal strengths. So at the time, I was particularly interested in market microstructure, so the changes that MiFID brought about, that kind of thing. So I went to the regulator first, and I went into a policy role to start with, and then a supervisory role. I eventually wound up in surveillance, but I thought about what interested me and where my strengths lay, and I recommend that to anyone. So whether you have an interest in market microstructure or infrastructure, as I did, which would lend itself to supervision, perhaps first line supervision, which is an element of surveillance, more of the disorderly markets kind of stuff, fat fingers, rogue algos, or whether it's market abuse, the detective element that I currently do, which is investigation and curiosity, and that would lend itself to financial crime transaction monitoring as well. It's really about doing a self-analysis about what your strengths are and what you're interested in, because it's another career and you have to be interested, because otherwise you won't stick around.
So that pause. If we pause on that point, because the regulators are a really interesting piece.
Yeah.
Because instinctively, if you've been earning six figures plus, you're not earning that anymore if you go into the regulator. Right? You've got to take large steps back. So again, when you talk about the interest in that side of things, you have to be genuinely interested because the money changes overnight.
Yes, you have to accept that it's a new career. I treated it as an apprenticeship, if you like. I'll be honest, young family at the time. I did subsidise that apprenticeship for as long as I could afford to, through my the savings that I managed to build up. But it was a very worthwhile experience, very steep learning curve. In a 20-year trading career prior to that, facetiously, I've always said things go up, down, sideways. Once you know what makes them do that, you can trade. It felt like a much steeper, broader learning experience at the regulator. I know that wasn't the case because my memories just failed me as to what I had to do at the start of my prior career. But if you have that level of interest, then it's really worthwhile.
Did you feel the time that you spent, because you did three different areas, like policy, supervision, and market monitoring, or surveillance as it is now. You learn as much in each one? You'd recommend all three?
Yes, I didn't learn as much in policy. I was very niche there. I came in shortly after I started the regulator. The flash crash happened in 2010, and I was very focused on high frequency algorithmic trading and how that might manifest as in the markets as disorderly markets more than market abuse at the time, actually. Supervision was interesting. It gave me a broad appreciation as to how the regulator treats firms.
Yeah.
And then surveillance, when I wound up in surveillance and we built a new team, I was part of the original team that still exists. That made me realise that surveillance is somewhat reverse engineering what you previously did.
Yeah.
So it's not unfamiliar in that regard, but you're looking at it from a completely different lens.
Yeah. So having done all of that, you're now a hiring manager of people looking to make that move.
Yeah.
If someone's not fortunate enough to be able to get a role in the regulator, is there other bits and pieces that they can do to make their CV worthy of a first discussion with yourself?
Yes. So I generally have always advised people to have embarked on some kind of compliance qualification, whether it's CISR or EMEA or something else, that shows intent.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think if you're trying to make a career switch, you need to go and do the full COSI diploma, which can take 3 years, because if you lose interest or you don't manage to find the role you want, that's a significant investment in time and money.
Yeah.
But to have started on that path, or to have done some qualifications to confirm your own interest as well, more than anything, is very valuable. Shows intent to the hiring manager. So I think there's that, and just being well prepared. So you're in the industry, use your contacts, talk to people, the people that are still working, find out what their compliance colleagues and supervisory colleagues are coming to talk to them about on a daily basis, and that'll keep you up to date with the current themes in the industry as regards what regulators are looking at. Look at the market watches on the FCA website, that's a good indicator. Google recent finds, just to show that you've got current knowledge and an interest.
Yeah, that makes sense. We always give people the advice, like how do you stand out from a crowd? If there is a job where they're looking for someone ex-business to move into surveillance, how do you make sure it's your CV rather than anyone else? And we say similar to what you've said, right?
Yeah.
If you've signed up for the CISI, you've bought the books yourself, you've paid for that first qualification, doing at least the module. I know it sounds silly to say that, but it's not just about putting your name down. It's about showing that you're genuinely trying to accelerate yourself ahead of others. We always see that they get the interviews over other people when we get there.
Yeah.
The other side of things then is people often ask us whether academics matter. Do you go far enough back in people's careers histories to care? Do they need to be numbers focused if they work in trade surveillance? Or?
No, I mean, that's not to say that I do look at people's academics, but combined with what they've done recently, someone who did a history of art degree or even a classics degree 25 years ago, great. But nowadays I'm looking for people, and a lot of business people have that, are used to manipulating large data sets in Excel or an in-house system that have that experience. So like anything, academics give an indication as to ability, but it's really what you've been doing and how that might apply in the role that I need you for at that time. And there's various roles, right? So it's not, we have surveillance analysts still require, you look at your data sets and then you require subjective human analysis. And the FCA are big on this around what you're seeing, but then we have people that need to work with Tableau. We have people that use Excel to create management information. So there's various roles. Surveillance, supervision, first, second line is a big space in terms of the roles that are available.
Yeah, yeah. So if we step away from qualifications, or maybe back to, I don't know quite how I'm phrasing this, one of the bits of advice we're giving people, not just in surveillance, in everything, is coding is the most frequently asked question we get, right?
Yeah.
Here's a role, it requires X skill set, but if you've got someone who's got Python or something like that, that instantly jumps them ahead of those that don't. Is that the same in the surveillance world?
It's becoming more so. At the moment, I think it depends on the firm you go to. If you go to a large investment bank, they'll have a group of coders that us business people will struggle to keep up with because they do that all day and they are data science background. So that's where academics do come in. They are recently qualified data scientists and they work with ex-business people. And ex-business people, as I say, a lot of them are already quite well-versed in Excel, advanced Excel, things like that. So it's a combination. If you're going to a smaller firm, you may be required to have that ability. But then nowadays, front office people, the people that I expect to be coming into compliance and surveillance are going to be people that are used to building algos. They have a quant background, that kind of thing. So it really does depend. But in general, a second line surveillance function will be set up with the people that can say, here's a data anomaly, whether that's the business person or the data scientist, and the person with markets experience who can say, actually, by looking at that data that you've presented to me, I can see that they are trying to do this, 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 and this, whether it's egregious or otherwise.
Yeah, makes sense. So talking the talk is helpful, even if you don't have the skills. So basic understanding of coding, even if you're not.
Yeah, I think so.
Still use.
Yeah,
and would make a difference to you as a hiring manager when you're looking at CV, or?
Yeah, so I've got roles out now where a nice to have is Python, SQL, VBA coding. And
when we say nice to have, it's not essential, but if you've got 50 CVs,
then you put yourself one level up on the shortlist.
Makes sense. What about the separation between comms surveillance and trade surveillance? If I'm a business guy looking to make the move, is one more plausible than the other?
being honest, you're more likely to get a role in trade surveillance. Comms surveillance isn't in most large banks now offshore to start with, as in there's a level of triage done by a team that don't necessarily need market understanding. That then gets escalated back to the team onshore, which will be that business person who can provide the context around that. Now, what's happening, we're back to technology again.
Yeah.
What's happening with AI is that LLMs can do that, some of that level of triage. So they assist the level 1 teams. So there will be less coming through. But so I would say that comms level, in surveillance phraseology, there's level 1 and level 2. If you can get a level 2 comms role, that's great for a business person. Level 1 is not the right role for you. It's not what is your skill set is, or it would be your skill set is probably more suited to other roles. It's not. It's too developed for that level 1 requirement.
And in the guise of what we've just discussed, ideally getting some time with the regulator, ideally level 1 CISI, if not more. So level 1's the wrong phrase, but a module in the regulatory world, CISI. By the time I've done that, if I'm starting today, is AI going to be so far down the line that the exposure to that level 2 opportunity is getting further and further away?
No, I don't. No, I think level 2 will be there for a long time to come.
Okay.
AI is going to assist the level 1 analysts. We'll need less. Most level 1 teams are quite sizable.
Yep.
They're offshore for a reason.
Yeah.
You know, the wage cost is lower. Those teams will shrink. They will still exist, but they will be assisted by AI.
Yeah.
Who can say, for example, e-comms alert you're looking at appears to be someone discussing front running, which is a breach of these regulations. And by the way, here's some fines. Mm-hmm. So then they know to escalate it. Mm-hmm. And then it requires someone with the actual experience to interrogate what they're looking at to say, actually, it is front running or it's not. Yeah. So AI is going to be a good assistant.
Makes sense. And how's AI hitting the world of trade surveillance?
It's not yet. LLMs can do a similar thing. They can make you more efficient in alerts analysis. Same thing. This appears to be X from the data we're looking at. Here's some fines. It's not really affecting. We don't have large numbers of trade surveillance analysts at level 2, or surveillance experts at level 2. So the AI is not particularly affecting trade surveillance as yet. It will kill false positives, which is always a good thing. But we've had calibration teams in place for a number of years to do that anyway. Yeah. So.
And finally, these products in that context. So if I've been cash equity focused all of my life, realistically, cash equity trade surveillance is my only option or the obvious option?
It's the obvious option. It's not the only one. Once you land, obviously, if that's your expertise, that's where your value is. Yeah. But once you do surveillance, it goes back to what I said earlier, actually. Once you work out what makes the product move, whether it's fixed income, FX, equities, you can look at an alert and say, I understand why they may have done that for legitimate or illegitimate reasons. Yeah. So.
And then what about progression once people get in? So I've made the move, I've got whatever, I'm a cash equities, a front office individual, I've made the move into cash equity surveillance. I'm restarting a career, as far as I'm concerned, in that guy. So realistically, I'm probably a VP level with the skill set I've got, possibly VP, but we don't see it as frequently.
Yeah.
How do I progress and develop? How do I get to the level you've got to? Do I need to move cross-product? Do I need to learn more? Do I need to learn to code? What would you guide and advise people to take on?
Oh, that's a difficult one. I think, like anything, it comes with opportunity. So it will either be a move upwards within the company you're at, either through recognition of your expertise, which means that your role is recognised to be, you're benching at a role level above what you're performing at, or a vacancy, or you move sideways within your own firm. So I've seen people move from, so I'll delineate, first line surveillance in my head is client detriment, which makes the client say line out and walk out, or disorderly markets. So as I mentioned earlier, fat fingers, rogue algorithms. So that's what in my head, what the first line surveillance do. And then the second line surveillance is around the market abuse, market misconduct areas. So poor conduct in terms of market abuse, market manipulation, but also harassment, dignity at work, bullying, that kind of thing. and then obviously traditional forms of market abuse, insider dealing, market manipulation, that kind of thing. So I think through a combination of being aware of your own skill set and how to augment your skill set, you can make yourself a more well-rounded individual, which will make you attractive internally or externally.
And what about reading as well on the route in? It may sound silly, but for years when surveillance roles come, knowledge of or exposure to market abuse regulation is one of the things that's almost a guaranteed bullet point on a job spec. Can I go and get myself a FCA handbook and read and learn and grow and get exposure?
Not necessarily the handbook. It's quite a lengthy tome if you printed it out. There's a lot of free stuff out. I say free. There is free stuff out there that's very valuable. So back in 2018, the FMSP published, the behavioural cluster analysis, which is 220 years of market abuse cases. Mm-hmm. So you can look at those, and that teaches you how a form of market abuse manifests in various products. As I said, FCA market watches are published pretty frequently. They come out and they are an indication of where the regulatory focus is. And they talk about cases and examples. There's lots of the vendors provide analysis and of cases, either recent cases or historical. There are vendors that provide a handbook of regulations, so you can have a flick through, skim it from time to time, work out what regulations you think are relevant to the role that you're applying for or you're currently in. So, I mean, the latest one that's coming out is EMEA, which is around crypto regulation. So if you think you're applying to a crypto market maker or exchange, that'd be relevant. Remit is the equivalent of MAR for the energy markets. So it's about doing a little bit of desk-based internet research. Really, there's a lot available. I don't think you particularly need to go and buy much apart from what you're buying for your professional qualifications.
And I can say from our side of the fence, especially remit in the commodities world, has been the growth of the last 18 months, right? Commodities businesses, a lot of them have been booming while other people have been a bit stagnant or shrinking or slowing. And actually, ex-commodities business professionals moving into surveillance has been frequent, much like it was 5, 6 to 10 years ago in the banks for fixed income and equities professionals.
And I think that's a good area for ex-business at the moment. So I'm frequently asked, do you know any commodities, energy surveillance people? And to be honest, relative to my network, it's a very small number. So.
Well, I think it is across the industry. Right? Realistically, if we're asked as recruiters to go and find individuals to make that move or individuals that are already there are a lot more fixed income specialists than there are specific commodity specialists for sure.
And it's cyclical. 5 years ago, you struggled to find a good fixed income surveillance analyst. Regulatory focus was biting. I think it helped because that meant that perhaps salaries in the surveillance world became more attractive to business people. And that helped. So we now have fixed income surveillance analysts and a number of them. And it sounds like the same thing's happening in commodities.
And final piece, do people with financial crime exposure, like you mentioned transaction monitoring earlier, how much of a natural overlap is there on that side of things? Because again, when people come to us and say, I want to make the career transition, I want to get myself into a surveillance role in the future, that first opportunity is normally the hardest part, right? Once you're in, rebuilding a career again is the same as building a career in any part of most industries, right? Work hard, learn more, grow, develop, network, etc., and you'll get there. We get a lot of financial crime CVs come to us looking to make a move. We get a lot of people specifically from transaction monitoring that believe there's a large overlap between what they do and what you do, and it should be more of a natural fit. Do you see that or?
No. So if someone someone who's currently in the business, in the front office, they can make a decision as to whether to pursue a financial crime career or a career in, say, market abuse surveillance or first line surveillance for client detriment and disorderly markets. Once you go down that career path, I think you are a little bit, it is a narrow path. So at the lower level 1 stuff that I was talking about is interchangeable. You can learn how to do transaction monitoring alerts, you can learn how to do market abuse surveillance alerts. those two are interchangeable. But at the level we're talking about, where you've got some business expertise, it becomes more focused, more narrow.
Yeah, and I think it's true across all parts of regulation, right?
Yeah.
The more you learn, the more you grow, the more develop, the more you become specialised, the more it is you do, and the harder it is to make that transition.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Thank you, Simon. Pleasure. Really enjoyed speaking to you, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ben.